Hey you guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you another ranked video. And this ranked video will be for, well, one of the first heavy metal bands I ever gotten into, Demon Hunter. That's right. We'll be going over the Demon Hunter discography, and we'll be ranking the albums from worst to best. Now, I've been a big fan of Demon Hunter since 2014, so since the Extremis days, I know I'm a little later than others. But believe it or not, there's actually some people who just got into them during the Outlive cycle, which is pretty insane to me, but, you know, better late than never, of course. But yeah, it was pretty difficult ranking the discography, because, I don't know about you guys, but Demon Hunter is one of those bands that are very special to me. And, yeah, I really dig Ryan Clark's vocals and everything, and they've been one of my favorite bands for quite a few years. So yeah, but I'm going to try my best to rank the discography from worst to best and how it's probably been the most consistent for me, I guess. And if you rank the discography differently, that's fine. Just go ahead and leave your rank down in the comments. But this rank is just my opinion, of course. So let's get into it. So now we can get into the weakest, of course. Now the weakest, I think, is The World is a Thorn. Now, I think this album's biggest problem is the vocals, surprisingly. Even though I, say nothing but good things about Ryan Clark's vocals. This is definitely where his vocals are at its weakest, I think. And not just in Demon Hunter either, even in Training for Utopia and Knives. I mean, everything. Every Ryan Clark project, I feel like his vocals are the worst on The World is a Thorn. And I think that's mainly his screaming vocals, because he sounds like he's yelling or shouting more so than using actual metalcore screams, you could say. But there is still some songs that I do like from this album. Songs Collapsing and Driving Nails. Those were some of the first Demon Hunter songs I ever heard, and the songs that, helped me get into the band. Collapsing features Bjorn Strid from Soilwork, and that's a real energetic track, and it's probably my favorite. But yeah, World is a Thorn, it's not a terrible album, but yeah, it's probably their weakest. Okay, so next up, we got Outlive, which is the band's latest album. Now, when this album first came out, I loved it. I ranked it within the top 3 best. Of course, that usually happens when a new album by one of your favorite bands comes out. You think it's the greatest thing ever, you could say. But over time, that excitement wears off, and I am really starting to look at it for what it is. And surprisingly, it still surpassed The World is a Thorn. And I think mainly because it has more songs that I go back to. I really like Cold Winter Sun. I know that's a song that, that's one of the singles that a lot of people say is one of their weakest, but I actually like it. And I remember when this first came out as a single, I enjoyed it ever since. Of course, everyone knows Died in My Sleep, which is more on the commercial side, but it's a pretty cool song. But I think Cold Blood and Patience are so underrated. And those are some of the best tracks on the album, in my opinion. But yeah, Outlive, they went for a more commercial side, a more melodic, rock side. They kind of went the route that All That Remains went for a little bit. But I still do think there's some redeemable stuff on this album. It's not too bad, but it is one of their weakest. Next up, we got Summer of Darkness. Now, there's a lot of people that actually have this album ranked a lot higher. There's some people that have this within the top 3 or maybe even the top 2. But for me, this album just drags on for way too long. As far as regular editions go, this is Demon Hunter's longest album. And I think the songs blended together too easily on this album, but that's not to say that there's no good songs on this album, because there definitely are. Of course, everyone knows Not Ready to Die, which is a Demon Hunter classic. Every Demon Hunter fan should know this song by now. And My Heartstrings Come Undone, which is a fan favorite ballad. I think it's a good song. I like the instrumentation in that. I think the title track and Annihilate the Corrupt are pretty underrated songs as well. And of course, I Play Dead is another really good song as well. It's a song that I do return to. I like its melodies and its aggression and things like that. Yeah, Summer of Darkness has some good stuff on it, but it is lower for me. But I still think it's a pretty good album for what it is. Okay, so next up we got the self-titled debut. Now, this, in my opinion, is a super underrated Demon Hunter album. And I think that can pretty much speak for most bands. There's a lot of, bands where people say that their first album is their worst, or the most forgettable, you could say. And I feel like this album kind of falls into that trap. I mean, this is definitely Demon Hunter's heaviest album. Like, you can really hear their influences. Like, as you know, Demon Hunter is very so influenced by melodic death metal, like In Flames, Soilwork, especially. And you can kind of hear some Slipknot and nu metal influences in the self-titled as well. I think it's a really good album, and it's pretty overlooked, and it's pretty unpopular to say that I like it more than Summer of Darkness and all those albums, but I actually do like this album. It's a real aggressive, real heavy one. It's got Screams of the Undead, Infected, and Through the Black. Just great songs, really great songs. I think this is a great album. And if you're a Demon Hunter fan, you haven't listened to it in a while, I encourage you to check it out again. Okay, so next up we got Storm the Gates, which is their fourth album, and it's their most successful. Now, there was once a time where this was actually my least favorite Demon Hunter album. Why? I don't know. I think it was mainly because of the ballads. The ballads really didn't do much for me. But I actually do like the ballads on this album, especially Carry Me Down. Carry Me Down is an incredible song. It's a real emotional song. But of course everyone also knows the title track, Fading Away, which is more on the radio-friendly side. I think it's a good song. But I think A Thread of Light and Fiction Kingdom are so underrated. I think Storm the Gates is a really good album, but it's not one of my least favorites, at least anymore, but it's not one of my favorites either. It's more in the middle for me. I think it's a good album, for sure. And it's a good gateway for people. I know that this album was a gateway for a lot of people to Demon Hunter. So yeah, next up, we gotta talk about Extremis. Now, there was actually a point where Extremis was a lot lower to me. But if I was really, judging this album, this is actually one of the Demon Hunter albums that I've returned to the most. I think this is a really good album. And sure, it's more on the technical side, they experiment a little more, but I mean, Extremis has some of their best guitar solos. I mean, you listen to tracks like Artificial Light, the guitar work on that song, outstanding. And Artificial Light is, of course, one of my favorite songs on the album. And I think What I'm Not is underrated. Of course, Last One Alive is a radio-friendly song. It's a really good song as well. I really like In Time and Gasoline as well. Those are two songs, in my opinion, that are so underrated. Yeah, there's a lot of heaviness and a lot of melodies in this album. Extremist is a good album, I think. Okay, so now we're at number 2, guys. We're almost there. At number 2, we got True Defiance. Now, for the longest time, when I first became a Demon Hunter fan, this was actually my top number 1 favorite. And of course, it was mainly because of the ballad songs, Tomorrow Never Comes and Dead Flowers, which I think are still really good songs. And as you know, the ballads are what I started with when I first got into Demon Hunter, so, the ballads that they do kind of do hold a special place for me. But I do like True Defiance as an album, though. It's got Crucifix, God Forsaken, My Destiny, Someone to Hate. There's a lot of people that say this is their heaviest, or at least one of their heaviest. I can see where they're coming from a little bit. I mean, especially in the song Crucifix. That's a real brutal one. And it's a great song as well. Yeah, I think True Defiance is the best Demon Hunter album in terms of their modern stuff. Yeah, I think True Defiance is just a really good album. It's outstanding. And this is also a really good gateway for people who are wanting to check out Demon Hunter. Okay, so number one is pretty obvious. If you know me well enough, at number one, I got the Triptych. Now, the Triptych to me is just one of the best metalcore albums of all time. I think it has almost everything you would want in a Demon Hunter album. It's got the best ballads in my opinion, and it's also got some of the most underrated Demon Hunter songs of all time. And it does, of course, have one of Demon Hunter's biggest songs ever, which is Undying, which, by the way, I do think is a little overrated, but it's not a bad song. But I think Not I is really good, and Relentless Intolerance is a really underrated Demon Hunter song. Sure, you know, the riffs in that song are kind of like, what? But the chorus is what really takes it for me. And of course we do have to talk about the song Deteriorate, which might be my favorite Demon Hunter song of all time. It's of course one of their ballad songs, and I know some people might be like, really? Your favorite Demon Hunter song ever is a ballad? Well, it is, of course, and as you know, the ballads are what I started with when I got into Demon Hunter, and to me, that's what Demon Hunter is best at, making ballads, and I think this song is really good, and I really like the instrumentation and Ryan's vocals, and of course The Tide Began to Rise is another really good ballad, and 1000 Apologies is a great song as well. It is one of their most popular songs, but I do like it. It's really good. It's more of a radio-friendly type song. The Triptych, I think, has so many good songs on it, and it's, in my opinion, their best album. So there you go, guys. That is my ranking of the Demon Hunter discography. Let me know what you guys think of my rank. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know. So thank you for watching. Have a good one. Take care.